guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Simeon. I'm a biomedical science graduate and an incoming medical student at St. George's University of London. So this video today is going to consist of me just basically comparing and contrasting and kind of just highlighting what the difference is between the UCAT and the GAMSAT, which are two medical school entrance exams that we use in the UK to gain admissions. So the GAMSAT is primarily used for graduates, while the UCAT is kind of graduates and undergrads. But I'll kind of go further into all the different differences and details. So I've actually done both of the exams. I did both of the exams when I applied to university, and I did the UCAT a while before that, before I actually went to biomedical science. So I do have a good knowledge base on both of the exams. So yeah, let's just get into the video. So the first exam that we'll be speaking about today is the UCAT, and that's the University Clinical Aptitude Test. So this test is sort of like an IQ test. So it doesn't really test any previous knowledge or any biology, physics, or chemistry or anything like that. So it's sort of just seeing the way you think, how you would act or perform as a doctor under pressure. I think that's kind of the theory behind the exam. The key facts about the exam is that it runs in the summer from around June to September, so you have like a large window of opportunity to be able to do the exam. It's all done digitally on a computer in a test center. So if you have done something like the driving theory test in the UK, it'll kind of be a similar format to that. So you will actually even be with people who are doing their driving test. So you'll kind of be doing the same thing. So they give you headphones, they give you earplugs, and they give you like a whiteboard to do the exam on. Most universities actually do use this exam, so I think it's the most popular one. I'm not sure exactly how many of the universities use it, but I do know like a significant amount of them do it for both graduate courses and undergraduate courses. So it's kind of like the main go-to exam for kind of applying to medical school. So the second exam that I'll be talking about today is the GAMSAT. So that's the Graduate and Admissions Medical School Test. So you'll use that exam if you're a graduate, or if you hold a degree already, or if you're in the middle of a degree as well, to kind of apply for accelerated courses. So a few universities will use that instead of the UCAT to set their requirements for entry. So that exam is a knowledge-based test, and you do have to have previous knowledge on science, so physics, chemistry, and biology. I think they do write on their website that you have to have up to first year undergraduate level, but in reality, if you have kind of A-level / like high school level of knowledge in science, you should be fine. You won't find it too difficult. So for that exam, it does run twice in a year. It runs, I think it's every March and every September, I think. And yeah, so there are 3 sections in it. There's the reasoning and humanities, there's the essay question, and then there's the reasoning in sciences. So basically the first section is kind of similar to the verbal reasoning in the UCAT, where you kind of read a passage and decipher knowledge or decipher information and kind of answer the questions to that. The second one is an essay. I think they'll give you a statement or an argument, and so you have to kind of give your points for and against, or come to a conclusion. And the third is basically just like multiple choice and answered science questions. So they can range from stuff on homeostasis to like moments in physics, or stuff like just chemical equations. So nothing too difficult, but it would be good to kind of have a grasp of these concepts before trying out the exam. And it is usually for people who do have degrees. So I don't think if you're an undergrad, if you're strictly going for an undergrad, there would be any point in doing this exam. So yeah, that's the GAMSAT. So the pros of the UCAT are, the main pro for me definitely I think is the resources, and how there are a lot more resources. The quality of the resources are a lot better in my opinion. You're supported in your learning with it a lot more, and even by the UCAT consortium themselves, they do offer a lot more support than some other exams. The second thing is that there is a large window to do the exam. So you do have all the way from June to September. So if you want to do it right at the end, it does cost a bit more, but you do have more time to prepare. Or for some other people who just want to do the exam right at the beginning and just get out of the way and get it done. So that's one of the best things I think about the exam, is the accessibility. It's not just like on one date you have to be there or be square, if you get what I mean. You have like opportunities to change it. The third thing that I think is good about the UCAT as well is in terms of financial help, they do have bursaries that you can use. So if you're not really in the financial position to be able to afford the exam, they can help you. So it's not like inaccessible to most people. Another thing that I think is a benefit of the UCAT is that a lot more universities use the exam, and it's more of a popular exam. So if you are using the UCAT, you can apply to like an array of universities. So you're not kind of held. For example, if you've done the GAMSAT, you can only apply to this and this university. So that's another benefit, I think. So some of the cons of the UCAT, I think, for me, would be the fact that it doesn't really require previous knowledge. Some people may see that as a good thing, but I think if you know what to expect before you're doing an exam, it kind of helps a bit more to have some previous knowledge. So some people would say that it's not really that relevant to science because there isn't actually any science or medical stuff in the exam. But I think it all comes down to what kind of person you are and what kind of style of learning you prefer. Another con of the exam is that you need to put in a lot of practice, because obviously it's all new content. A lot of people wouldn't have done an aptitude-based exam probably for a long time. So you do need to practice a lot of the exam. You need to put a lot of hours in to kind of get used to the exam and the format and the style and kind of what kind of questions they ask. And some of the questions you literally wouldn't even know like the answer or know how to answer it unless you've done it and got it wrong. So you definitely need to put in a lot of hours to kind of do well in that exam. The third con of the exam, I think, would be that it is quite costly if you are just an 18-year-old that doesn't really have much of an income. So you do have to pay out, you have to pay from your own pocket to do the exam. It's not free, so that might be seen as a disadvantage. Last thing about the UCAT that I think is a con is the time pressure in the exam. Like, you literally have like the tiniest amount of time to answer these questions, which is why it's so important to practice so much, because you have to think on the spot. It's the kind of exam where if you don't know the answer, like don't linger on it, just skip the exam. So the time pressure is a really like big thing in the exam. I know a lot of people, that's like the number one thing that puts them off. So now I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of the GAMSAT. So the GAMSAT, one of the good things about the GAMSAT, I think, is that as it's an international exam, you can use it to apply to several countries. So if you're thinking of applying to Ireland or Australia, you can use the same result that you did in the exam in the UK to apply for universities in these countries. So it's kind of good that you don't have to restrict yourself to one place. Or if you're used up all your choices in one country and you don't mind moving to another country, you can do that as well. So another benefit of the GAMSAT is that once you get your result, as I spoke about earlier, you can use the same exam result for the next 2 years. So for example, let's say I took my exam in March. Now I can use it for entry this September and the September after. So I think that's good. So you don't have to keep doing, unlike the UCAT where you have to do the exam every year because it's only valid for 1 year. This one, they kind of give you a bit of leeway. Another pro of the GAMSAT, I think, is if you have a scientific background or you've done anything with science, whether with your degree or in school, it might make it a bit easier because you will have a bit of knowledge on things you've learned before. Like, you will know stuff about the heart maybe, or about photosynthesis, or about all these scientific concepts that I'll ask questions about. So it might make you feel more confident or less pressure doing an exam like this because you do have some background knowledge. Another good thing about the exam, I think, is that you can do the exam multiple times and you can still use your best result to apply for university. So it's not like if you do the exam in March and then you get a score you're not happy with, and then you decide to do it again in September and the score is even worse, or you can use the result from the previous one, so you're not basically in the worst position for when you're applying. Another advantage, I think, of the GAMSAT is that once you've paid for the exam, you do get a free booklet with it. So that's kind of a preparation material that they do provide for doing the exam. So some of the disadvantage, I think, of the GAMSAT when you're choosing to do it is the fact that it is quite a costly exam. It's £268, so it's considerably more expensive than doing the UCAT. And also they have more limited test centers, so you do have to kind of consider the cost of transport. And you know, if you're going to London or something and you're from somewhere far away, you might have to stay overnight, so it can build up the cost for the exam, which is obviously not good if you're a student or you're trying to get into studying. But if you do have people that can support you, or you do have money to do it, then obviously that wouldn't be a problem. Another disadvantage of the exam, I think, is that it is a very long exam. That I think that's the hardest thing about the exam. Like, the content is pretty hard as well, but the fact that it's 5 hours, and I think when I did the exam, anyway, for me, more than anything, it was kind of the fatigue of just answering question upon question upon question that kind of made me feel like, oh, this exam is really difficult, rather than the actual content. On the other note, it is quite a difficult exam, because the content, you do have to have a level of science knowledge, and it's kind of just like an A-level exam. Like, it will be difficult, but if you prepare for it, you wouldn't have any problems. Another con of the exam, which I think is the most significant, the most annoying thing about the exam, is that there's a real serious lack of resources. And I remember when I was looking for resources for the exam, I had to look for like a week to find like some random person had to send me like an email of past papers, and there are not many websites or publications that offer training for the exam. Even on the GAMSAT website, they're basically like, yeah, we don't have any preparation materials, and it's kind of like, well, how do you expect me to prepare for this exam then? So that's definitely one of the things I find quite annoying about the exam. Another thing that is quite annoying in the exam, but this goes back to the cost discussion, is that there aren't any concessions or bursaries or any financial aid if you don't have a lot of money, unlike the UCAT, which they do support you and do give you some money. So that's another thing you might have to consider, the affordability of it. In conclusion, I think if you're deciding on applying to university in UK, you first have to consider whether you're applying for a graduate course or you're applying for an undergraduate course. If you're applying for a graduate course, I would say, obviously it depends on person to person, like what institution you want to go and apply at, because it's not really up to you. It's up to which university offers which exam as part of the entry requirements. But I think all in all, for me and my experience of both exams, I definitely prefer doing the UCAT, just because I felt like I could just sit down and prepare for a few months, kind of familiarize myself with the questions, because the questions aren't really like that difficult. It's just that you have a lot of time pressure and it's unfamiliar. It's like stuff you haven't done before. So with the UCAT, if you just practice for a long time, you will definitely, there's no way you wouldn't do well in it. And for the GAMSAT, and another thing as well, the GAMSAT is quite a costly exam. I didn't really like paying that much to do the exam, and I had to travel like quite a distance. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy that, and it was very long as well. And I got very hungry on the day, and I was just like, why is this exam like this? But for people who maybe enjoy like science or have done a scientific degree before, like biomedical science or biology or something, it might be easier for them. Or people who've done like maybe physics in A-level, because when I did the exam, I had done physics in A-level, so all the physics stuff, it wasn't really anything new to me, so I kind of felt less pressure doing that. Lastly, if you are considering doing any exams, you should also check out the BMAT as well. So not as many universities do use the BMAT, but from what I've heard from people I know who've done the exam, it's kind of an easier version of the GAMSAT. And I don't think the BMAT is for any graduate courses, it's just undergraduate courses. So most people I know who did the BMAT did get into their choice of entry of medical schools. So that might be another one to look at. I haven't done the BMAT, so that's why I didn't really include it in the video. But yeah, it's definitely something worth checking out. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you watched it to the end, I hope it's kind of helped you and given you some sort of insight into deciding which exam you want to do, or maybe just making you feel give you a bit more clarity if you're deciding to do both exams. So yeah, I will be trying to put some more videos out on tips and just advice on my medical school journey and yours. And yeah, peace.